Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It is a beautiful Friday and it's kind of cool outside, which I think is a big relief for everybody. It's been super hot lately. We are so excited about today. We're going to have a presentation with the wonderful Rachel Bell. She's going to be covering Cringeworthy. From Cringeworthy to Constructive content in COVID-19 world. We're incredibly excited to have her. She's one of our members. We absolutely love working with Rachel. She brings a whole bunch of experience to the table, working with companies of all shapes and sizes on their content and their PR efforts. She's also just very supportive of the veteran community here in San Antonio. With that, Rachel, I'd love to turn things over to you, have you give a little bit more background on yourself, who you are, how you got here, and then jump right on into today's workshop.
Hey, great. Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate it. And as you said, I do have a background in public relations and communications, and I've been fortunate to work for myself in San Antonio now for 15 years. And so my specialty is in content development. I work with agencies and companies and organizations of all shapes and sizes, but I like to specialize on their content development and writing. So with that, I put together sort of a presentation of observances and also of some research that tells us what's going on now in this time of COVID with content, what kind of people, what kinds of content people like to receive, and what they appreciate and what they don't. And I also put together some tangible examples of really good examples, as well as some of the really cringeworthy ones that we've seen. But we're going to talk about sort of what is it about each of those examples that makes them either really bad or really good. And then we'll get into some next steps about how you can start putting some of these best practices into place. I think if companies were challenged on the communications and content end before COVID, then certainly now it's even more challenging in these times when people are more remote and they're more spread out, and they're consuming content at all-time high. So if that was not a place of comfort for you before, then it certainly is not now. And so we're going to talk about ways to optimize the way that you're reaching out and communicating with your various different audiences. And I hope we'll have some fun doing it. We're going to pick apart some examples, and to me, it's always fun to talk about it and share what I know and what I've learned. And as you said, I'm a big supporter of, as a member of Geekdom, I love the startup community. I love the entrepreneurial spirit that people have. I love supporting it in any way I can. And this is a little piece of random knowledge that I know, and I'm happy to share it with everybody. So I guess I can get started. Should I just share my screen?
Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I'll just remind people, if you do have any questions or comments, please drop them into the chats. We're streaming on our Facebook and our YouTube channels. We'll do our best to get those questions to Rachel. She's actually going to be doing a follow-up session with us here in a couple of weeks. We'll put that information out to everyone, but if you drop in your ideas or your comments or questions about where you're at in your situation, she'll be able to take all of that back and synthesize it, so that way when she comes back in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to cover all of those topics. And with that, I will step away so that Rachel can do what she does best.
Awesome. So are you seeing my whole screen, or are you just seeing like the slides?
You are good to go.
Okay.
Just slides.
I don't like all the random background stuff. Okay, so first, as I said, I gave you an overview of what we're going to talk about. And so the first thing I did, I found this video that I think kind of puts us all into the right frame of mind of the kinds of messages and the kinds of content that we've been receiving over the past several weeks and months. And what somebody did here is they compiled snippets of commercials from several dozen different brands. And what you'll see in this video is that how similar they are. They can all basically be spliced together into one single ad, and they're all almost exactly the same thing. So we're going to start with this just to give us a framework, a frame of mind, and then we'll move on from there on the other end of the video.
When we first opened our doors.
Since 1926.
Since 1978. For 60 years.
For 75 years.
For over 80 years. In 90 years.
For over 100 years. Nationwide has been on your side.
Restaurants have always been there for you.
Nissan has been with you through thick and thin. We will do what we've always done.
Take care of the people.
We're people.
People, people, people,
People.
people, family.
Family.
Family, family, family,
Family.
family,
Family.
family, families, families,
Families.
Even now,
Especially now.
especially now. Right now,
Now more than ever.
more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Today, more than ever.
Times like this.
At times like these,
During these difficult times.
In these troubled times.
challenging times,
Trying times. In these times of uncertainty.
during this time of great uncertainty,
During these uncertain times.
during these uncertain times,
Uncertain times.
In uncertain times. Uncertain times.
Unprecedented times.
Unprecedented times.
unprecedented times, this unprecedented moment in our history, time of social distancing,
While things have slowed down.
as we turn more inside,
While the doors may be closed.
while the distance between us has gotten bigger.
The more we stay apart,
We still find ways to stay close, even when we're apart.
even if we can't stand closer than 6 feet,
We can all stay connected to work, school, most importantly, to each other,
there's still ways to touch each other.
all without leaving the comfort and safety of your home. Without leaving the safety of your home.
Home.
Your home.
Home. Home, 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 home.
Oh, that's the key.
Buick and James are here to help.
Con Edison is here to help.
Here to help.
Our teams are here.
We're here. We're here. We're here.
Here for you.
We're here for you. We're here for you.
We're here for you.
We are here for you. We're here for you.
We are here for you. We'll be here for you.
Bunnings is here for you.
We're still here for you.
We're with you. We're part of your community.
So you can trust us.
You can count on us.
And we'll get through this. Together.
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 Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
To God.
Sorry. So that's fantastic, right? Like all of that is like those are messages that we've seen in the past several weeks, all put together. I'm sorry, I just got a message from somebody that said they were trying to get in, and the Zoom is showing them an error, like that they can't get into the meeting, which is the same error that I got at the beginning. So I think we probably have a lot of people who are stuck outside. I don't know if there's a way to fix that at this point, but anyway, I will continue. Sorry, so that just is an overview of the kind of media that we've been receiving, and it's cringeworthy because it's a collection of a lot of the same exact things that are being repeated over and over again. And so to move on from there, what's going on now, like out there right now? What does the data tell us that people are seeing out there? And so I did some research, I pulled some numbers, and I think this is interesting. This is Geekdom, so indulge me. But the research says that 50% of people are consuming more content now than ever. And it's interesting, that number seemed small to me because I think all of us are consuming more content, but only 18% of people disagreed with that statement. So more than half of us, at least half of us, say that we're consuming more than ever. 45% of people say they want to be inspired to be hopeful. So they want content that's going to make them hopeful and inspired. this is interesting. 30% of people say that their company is not sharing any content with their employees, and that makes them worried, that they assume that no news is bad news. And that's interesting because a lot of times when we think of content, we think of how we're communicating with our consumers or our potential customers or the outside. And companies still need to be deliberate with how they communicate with their teams on the inside. And that's something that Geekdom has done really well. I mean, we've gotten lots of communication from you guys about how you're building and preparing and, you know, community oriented stuff, but organizations as a whole need to also be more mindful of that. And then the other thing is 65% of people say that they have tried new brands after sheltering in place. So like that means to me, you know, we all know that like once we've been home and we're stuck at home and we only can get a certain kind of toilet paper, we're not going to be so picky about what kind of toilet paper we're getting because we just need to have it, right? So that across the board, they're seeing now in the research that most people have tried something new. And that should give us hope. That should bring us optimism. That's a good thing when it comes to opportunity, because it tells me that people are willing to receive new options from other places. And then the other thing, this is huge. 90% of people favor companies that are doing something to help consumers during this time. And so when we think about content and we think about how we're developing content and communicating with different people, we need to understand that the overwhelming majority of us want to understand what companies are doing to be helpful right now. And so it's not about making a sale and it's not about a hard sell. It's about doing something that is helpful. So I think that research actually is a good place to start with. But I also don't like it when people just share numbers without extrapolating some conclusion from that. So my takeaway from that is this. First, there's never been a more captive audience who want to keep in touch than there is now. More people are digesting content now more than ever. And to help restore faith in our economies and in our businesses, you need to keep employees up to date and with something positive. So something that is, you know, you may not have all the answers, but explain to them what you're doing and why you're doing and how they're important. And, you know, there are lots of messages that you can share, but you need to be mindful of your employees and your teams. And 3, there is a huge demand for authentic and relevant content. And this is funny because, excuse me, this is the point where people who are not communicators are like, they do this to me. They're like, what does that mean? What even is that? I don't know what do you mean by content? And it's funny because I use this word just like naturally because this is my industry and communicators do. But if you're not a communicator, if you haven't spent your life in agencies, you don't just understand what that means. So I'm going to take a step back and explain sort of what do we mean when we say content? What is content anyway? And so technically the definition is compelling information that informs or engages or amuses. So it's something that is information that is compelling in some way, that is either informative, engaging, or amusing. And so what does that mean? Does that mean, is that an email? Yes. Is it a video? Yes. Is it a blog post? Is it a social media post? Yes. Is it a presentation? Is it a letter? Is it all of that? Is it a website, a podcast? It's any kind of information that is compelling, that is informative or engaging or amusing. And so it's all of those things. And so when people talk about developing content now, we hear so much about video content and video is a shiny object, but it still has to have this purpose of informing or engaging or amusing. That's just the mode with which we receive it. All of these other things are what we're talking about, this world of content. And so custom content, and this was from back in 2014, so way before COVID, 82% of consumers said they feel more positive about a company after reading something that's written specifically for them. And 90% of people find custom content to be useful. That means that I can tell that you've gone out of your way to target me in some specific custom way. It's not a template. It's not the same thing that you send out to every single other person or every other company has the same thing. It's custom. and this is interesting too. This is from a study that came out right before, this was early spring. So before we were all talking about COVID, but it says organizations that provide optimal content for their customers prioritize their customers' needs 70% of the time, and prioritize their audience's needs over their organization's sales and promotional messages 54% of the time. So I think sometimes when people think of content, they think of like, it's sales. I need to tell you what I want you to buy from me, or I want to tell you how to engage with us. It's like it's a hard sell. But really, optimal content prioritizes the needs of your audience before the needs of what you want to sell them. And that's important because that cuts down on the cringe factor, especially now as we're dealing with a global pandemic of COVID, right? So content marketing is this thing where now that we understand what content is, how do we apply that into the sense of what this industry does and how it helps to people to communicate better. It's a strategic marketing approach that is focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. So the part that I want to highlight for the context of this conversation is the valuable, relevant, and consistent. So we understand that content needs to have some value and needs to be compelling and informational in some way, right? And we also have understood that what people are ready to receive now during this time of COVID are positive, uplifting, inspiring messages, right? And it also has to be valuable, relevant, and consistent. And so because this is Geekdom, and I know I'm talking to scientists and tech people and all different kinds of people, not just communications people, I made you a Venn diagram. I'm really proud of this because I made this Venn diagram. So you have to take, what is it that you want to say? This whole sphere of like, what is it that you're trying to say? And combine it with what is it that they want to hear? Because they're not necessarily the same. But when they are, that's where you're going to find the relevant content. It's not all about what it is that you want to say. And it's not all about what they want to hear, but in that middle part is where you're going to see what's relevant. So now we get to the like examples of what is cringeworthy. Like I've seen some, and I'm looking forward to sharing. And also, if you've seen some, please send them my way, because like I think this is fun. But we've seen some really awkward and cringy kind of stuff, and we've seen some other good stuff. So the first one I think we all can relate to in some way, no matter what your industry, no matter where you live, was when at the beginning, when you might remember Gal Gadot and her friends did this like cover of Imagine at the very beginning, and they all, did, and it was such a nice sentiment. In case you missed it, the idea was that they all took turns singing a piece of the song Imagine. And everybody knew that it was cringy. Like it was so hard to see that. And the question is why? Like I wanted to understand, like, why do we have such a hard time with that? And it's because we have these people who are overabundantly wealthy and privileged and have access to every resource in the world. And what is it that they're doing to be most helpful during this time? You're going to sing me a song? Like that's not helpful or productive or uplifting or inspiring. And so I think that's why it was so widely rejected and criticized as just cringy. Like it just made uncomfortable. And so that just like gives us a good place to start from. And then I'm going to get into what some brands have done. So this was a sponsored post that was targeted. And I know this writing is small, so in case you can't read it, I'll say, it says, in moments like these, the last thing you need to worry about is whether your skincare is safe. Get 20% off your first order and come buy our stuff. And I thought, yeah, like that, to me, that is just very cringy, right? Because in moments like these, the last thing I need to think about is skincare, period, full stop. Like, of course I should think my skincare is safe. I didn't know that it wasn't already. Like it's such a disconnect, right? They're not doing anything that's adding value to me. They're trying to be mindful of this moment that we're in, but not in a productive way. And so it missed the mark. Now, this is an interesting example. This came to me from a friend of mine who lives in Paris. And he's lived in Paris now for 4 years. And it's an ad that he got, like an email. He got this via email. So it's a piece of email content. Clearly it's a promotion, right? It's from Jimmy John's. Everybody likes a good Jimmy John's. And on its face, there's really nothing wrong with it. It says, set the table or move the pillows on the couch if that's more your style, and we'll bring the goods. And it's a coupon for $5 off of your order. But the problem with it is that it went to somebody who lives in Paris who hasn't been to a Jimmy John's in at least 4 years and has never heard from them in that amount of time. That's unfortunate, right? Like that is not custom. They have not been mindful of who it is they're speaking to right now. What they did was just mine their email list of like every customer they've ever had contact with and blast out to everybody the same message, which in his case was not at all welcome. It wasn't useful. It wasn't compelling. And it made him disengage from wanting any further contact with that brand. They hadn't been keeping in touch this whole time. It wasn't consistent. This touches on that consistency pillar. It's when you think about content, it needs to be consistent. Like you need to have more than once every 4 years when you're in touch with people and providing them with something of value. And so that's why this didn't land well, and understandably cringeworthy. This is another promotion that went out. This was around Easter time, and it said they want me to celebrate Easter with style and safety. And that's why they are happy to send me a free medical face mask with purchase to help me and my loved ones stay safe during this time. And I could either use it for my own safety or share it with someone special to help provide protection and peace of mind. And I was like, but only if I want the free medical mask, I need to purchase $40 worth of their stuff and then they'll send me one. And so that doesn't make me want to click on it, right? I do not want to engage with this brand because they must not really care so much about my safety if they're making me clear this $40 bar in order to get this mask. But also, I don't know what it is they sell really. I mean, it says flatware, but it just was a disconnect. It is not productive or helpful for me. And during this time when we need to be more isolated and we're not gathering with families at Easter time, I don't really want to gather and celebrate with just one mask. Like it just doesn't make sense. But an example from the same period of time at Easter time, this is a great example. This was a client that I worked with. So I know that this is completely on brand for them. It's a property management company that's based on the West Coast, and they're like in the Portland and Seattle and San Francisco Bay Area. And so their apartments are very expensive, like several $1,000s. And so their content is built to communicate all their various different lifestyle attributes that are associated with owning or renting a property from them. And here, their Easter message said, Easter looks a little bit different this year. The bunny is busy social distancing and we have to work with what we've got. Just remember, friends and family are a phone call away and a little kindness goes a long way. Happy Easter. And so it is this uplifting and positive message, right? It's timely because it was Easter time. It's reinforcing something about their brand that they already want us to know. They are pet friendly. That is something that they consistently communicate through a lot of their content. And also it is, it's got a cute little dog. It worked on all those levels. I appreciated getting it, and it was a good example of something good. This one I'm so glad a friend of mine shared this with me, and I had to like block out the name of the school. So you'll see there blank marks throughout the copy. Basically, a university decided that now during this COVID crisis, as the spread of coronavirus brings a new set of challenges, now is the perfect time to think about your estate planning and you're tying your philanthropic legacy to us, like when you die. And it was this is the most this is just the pinnacle of cringe, right? Like I couldn't believe that they sent this out. And later in the day, they sent an apology that they knew that it was not a good thing. They heard all kinds of feedback, I'm sure. This is not the time or the way to promote your philanthropic agenda by making me face my mortality and then asking me to remember you in my will. That's not, it just was so bad, right? It's, but then I want to also share some good examples. I don't know, is this blocking? Like I'm seeing the screen, but Joyce, can you see the whole screen? Okay. So this is amazing. Like this is a great example. This was a piece of content that I got from a company via email. So it was an email promotion. And I want to show exactly why it's so good. It fires on all cylinders, everything that we've been talking about so far. First, it says, we are reaching out to you from our homes in the New York City area where our small team is headquartered. And like most of you, we are rolling up our sleeves and asking ourselves what we can do to help. And so it strikes that point that I made earlier about how 90% of us want to see what are companies doing to help right now. It's fantastic. Also, I have bought things from these people before, but I didn't realize they were a small team, and I didn't realize they were headquartered in the epicenter of where coronavirus was happening in New York City. So I am drawn into this from the get-go. They continue after that by the first point they outlined for me as saying, we are sharing content and resources that we hope will make you smile. So keep in mind, this is a clothing company. They make clothes for kids, but what are they hitting me with? Free activities, a cookie recipe, a video of puppies playing in a bucket. They're feeding me content that I find useful, helpful, engaging, right? Uplifting. So yeah, I mean, of course, they're also trying to sell me clothes, but look at the way they're doing it. It's way easier to want to engage with these people, right? The second point they made is, of course, they're offering 50% savings on almost half of their clothes. So it's an incentive for me to investigate and find out more. But then the next point they make on the top here, it says, we're shining a spotlight on heroes. And so they're telling me about this new campaign where they're going to donate up to $25,000 to healthcare workers and small restaurant owners in the area now. Like, I want to support that, right? And finally, it says we're donating clothing. That's what they do. They're a clothing manufacturer, and they're going to donate 20,000 articles of clothes. Like, this is a great example of content that is constructive during this time. I want to continue to engage with this brand. I want to receive more of what they're sending me because it's useful. And finally, the great, like, unlike the Jimmy John's example that I shared, where after 4 years they sent their coupon to somebody who lives in Paris, at the end here they explain that they know everybody's situation is different, and that my email address my email preferences may have changed. So it says, we've worked to make it easier to adjust our communications to meet your current needs. They're being mindful of whatever my situation is now. Maybe I don't want to receive information from them. They've made it easy for me to opt out. They're telling me, like, we are happy to work with you on how you want to receive this. I think this is a great example of everything that is good. And in a similar vein, here's another example of a promotion of some content during this time that went out from Shutterfly and Tiny Prints, which, if you're not familiar with what they do, they print, announcements, holiday cards, invitations, events are really something I'm sure that they get a lot of their business from, which we can't really have very much of those, right? At all right now. So their promotion is around thank you cards. And again, it says, it's asking me to show my heartfelt appreciation, right? So it's something that it's uplifting, something that's positive and inspiring. And so therefore it's easier for me to receive that kind of thing, that kind of content. They also followed up with this. Now, Shutterfly is not in the business of making family games. Like, they don't make board games. They don't sell books. But what they did was they sent out content that is around fun at-home activities. They're demonstrating to their audience that consists of young families and probably have small kids at home, that we've got you covered. From family game nights to art projects to story time and more. They want me to engage with them. And they're not selling me a board game. They're selling me thank you cards and invitations and picture books and stuff. But the content that they are sending is relevant, and their audience finds it useful, helpful, and engaging. And if you're not familiar with this brand, I mean, it's a big, like, Life is Good. These guys, I was fortunate to get to see them speak at a keynote. The Life is Good founders, and their whole brand anyway, even before COVID, it's all about positivity and optimism and putting goodness into the world and being grateful. So that this is very consistent with what they do anyway. But look at what they've done here. This is content, because these are just Facebook posts, right? And I want you to pay attention to the fact that it's not a lot of words. Like, each one is, less than 12 words on the post. But what is it that they're saying? And this one here, with the baseball, 2020, the longest rain delay in history. It says, it's been a real pitch. What is your favorite part about going to a game? So they know that, people who really, it's summertime, people don't get to go to baseball games. We're missing that. But they're engaging their audience with this and positive message. The other one says, this was just 4 days ago. It says, when you stop and look around, life is beautiful. And it says, I've got a crush on nature, life is good. And in the middle, it also asks a question, what wildlife have you spotted this summer? But what I want you to pay attention to is on the bottom here is with the engagement. 6.6 thousand, like more than 6,000 people liked that image, but more than 1,000 people went on to share it. And so people want to amplify this positive message, right? They're encouraging other people to interact with this brand because they're sharing. It's timely, it's positive, but it's also engaging, right? What's your favorite part about going to a game? They're creating content for people to engage with in a positive way. And it's not a lot of words, and it doesn't have to be a lot of words, but it's still compelling, right? And it's still useful. And this is amazing. This was just 4 days ago. And in 4 days, they had more than 5,000 people just like that. It doesn't say a PS buy our t-shirt now. They sell t-shirts, they sell clothes. But it's more valuable that they're engaging people with this kind of content, because I will continue to engage with this brand. I find it uplifting and productive, right? And so this is a great example from here in San Antonio that I had to share because I came from the Tobin, and we give money to the Tobin. We're members. This was a letter. So this is another kind of content. It came to us like as a hard copy in the mail, like a letter. And I was completely expecting it to just, now you're hitting me up for money, because understandably, right? Like all of our nonprofits and all of our arts, and everybody is struggling, and they had to cancel their gala. And so this letter was letting us know that. But you know what they did in this letter? They said, you can trust that in the near future, we will again be asking for your financial support, but now is a time for thoughtful and deliberate planning. This letter was not at all to ask me for money. This was a letter to show me what they're doing to provide value during this time and to engage with me without asking me for something. I have to tell you, I appreciate that 1,000,000 times more, because I like seeing what they're doing to prepare. And I like seeing, that they're looking ahead to what it could be coming next. And then even better, this is also an example of content. The next day they hand wrote a letter. Like, we got a card handwritten, and it just says, we hope all is well with you and your family. And it tells me they're working behind the scenes and they miss me. And stay safe and healthy. And it doesn't say, P.S., please give us some money. I'm sure they will, and I will be so happy to give it to them. But this is custom too, because they know I have a family. They know based on the tickets that I've bought for different kinds of shows that clearly we have children. We must have a family. And so this could not be more personal, could not be more custom, positive and uplifting and productive. I absolutely want to continue to engage with them. And then as an example of that, of how they're providing value in the community during this time, remember that 90% that I said earlier want to see what you're doing. They, the symphony has been amazing at showing what they're capable of doing remotely and being creative about it and providing value to those of us who want to engage. And I have a daughter who plays the cello. So this hit me like right between the eyes. I was so happy to see it. It was a video that was released a few weeks ago. If you haven't seen it yet, please go find it. It's just a nice, beautiful moment of this guy playing the cello inside the Briscoe Art Museum. The Briscoe Museum. And so that's just as a way to encapsulate, this is also content and it is valuable. And I'm ready to receive that. This is constructive. This is a great example of what I'm talking about. So I know we've gone through some examples of like the cringeworthy and the constructive that are timely. And now just, if you give me a moment, I know we have to talk about the spelling and the grammar. I think a lot of people think, especially if you're not communicators, or if this isn't your industry, you don't like words and you're way more comfortable with computers and numbers and tech, that it doesn't matter just as long as you get it out. We just need to post it, right? So grab an intern or get somebody and just we'll put some content out there. And I'm here to tell you that not just anecdotally will that make you look bad, but the research supports why. There's a tangible price that you pay when you're not mindful of basic things like grammar and spelling and good quality content. So just for a moment, this was a study that was done in February, and it was a company that did an A/B test. So they took a piece of content and they posted it with deliberately misspelled and poor grammar and correct. So A/B test. And they discovered a few things. First, when you do that on a website, the bounce rate is 85% higher with sloppy spelling and grammar. So you could be doing all kinds of things in your funnel to get people to your website and to have people learn about you. But once they get there, if it does not greet them with correct spelling, correct grammar, 85% of it bounces 85% more than if it were correct, if you had spent the time and invested the effort in making it correct. So visible typos also make sites less visible on Google. So Google is smart enough to be able to weed that out, and they will penalize you for it if you don't have language that is correct. And ads that have typos in them have 70% less clicks than those that don't. And Google ads cost more with grammatical errors, and 20% more with spelling errors and 72% more with grammatical errors. Google will penalize you for it. It will cost you tangible money as well as the reputation of just like, you must not know what you're doing. You don't look like you know what you're doing. I can't trust you if you can't spell things right or have used correct grammar. And I have just a couple of examples. This is funny because this was posted on LinkedIn, and this is content. It's just a little post. And that's another thing I want to show. Like, we have shown video, we've got email, we've got social, we've got a letter and a card. We've got different kinds of content. And this is just a post that was on LinkedIn. But it's funny because it came from somebody who said they're a sales and marketing management professional. So you would hope that they would know better. And you have to look at it, but they misspelled the word Christmas. Like, they're clearly just trying to say Merry Christmas, but they misspelled it. It's spelled CHIR, church. And they weren't being ironic about it. Like, I was hoping it would be like, hey guys, look. I mean, no, they completely misspelled it and posted it for everybody to see. And so that hurts them, right? Like, I'm not going to trust this sales and marketing management professional with my business because they can't spell this thing right. And this is an example that came from a client that I worked with when they wanted to promote their on-site childcare center. They had, like, for employees and members, they had a new capability of just childcare on-site. And I saw it and it hurt because it says you wouldn't leave her in just anyone's care, would you? And of course, anyone's needs to have an apostrophe S, right? I mean, if just that it needs to have an apostrophe there. But also, I wouldn't leave my child in their care now. If they're not detail oriented enough to put an apostrophe in the right place, then they certainly are not. I don't want to leave my baby child there. Like, I just don't trust them, right? To pay the kind of attention that they should. So those are just some examples of the price that, that you pay if you're not paying the right attention to the quality of the content. It needs to be good quality. So to wrap it up, again, I just want to reiterate that good content is valuable and relevant and consistent. And so for the brands that are not able to hit that mark during this time, we find that they're creating just a cringeworthy effect. They're not able to produce something that is relevant or consistent or valuable. And so what do we do next, right? So I wanted to kind of tee us up or, wrap up with a way to think about how can we put some of these ideas into practice going forward. I mean, as an audience of Geekdom, I understand that not everybody is a big enough company that is able to afford multiple resources, especially during this time, to hire external people to do this. But I want to help empower people to understand that you can do it with the basic understanding of these things. So develop a positive message. It's not a sales-oriented message. It's not a hard pitch, but it's something positive and uplifting that those 90% of people that are looking for that are going to appreciate during this time. And walk your talk. Actions always speak louder than words, always. It's one thing for you to say something, and like all those brands at the beginning, we're in this together, people. But we as consumers now are past that point of initial crisis, and we've evolved into a place of what exactly are you doing now? Like, show me. And demonstrate that for me, and help me buy into that with you, and continue to engage with that. I want to hear those stories. And then 3, provide some kind of value. So whether it's board games and activities for your family at home, or whether it's showing me what you're doing locally in the community. That's the other thing I didn't mention is that people are concentrating now more locally than ever. They're paying more attention to the news and the information that comes out of their immediate local community than on the national side. And so that value that you are providing, if it's localized, it's way more appreciated. You're demonstrating that you're making some kind of a difference in your community. So to concentrate more on those kinds of things than on selling closing a hard sale. And then of course, to like, strong writing matters. Like, I always have to say that because because I notice a lot of it. And that's not to say that you can't have a typo. Everybody has typos and everybody makes mistakes. But if you're not working with a good quality approach to what is going out, and you're not being mindful of it, then you're doing a great disservice to your company and your brand. So, and then that's it for now. I mean, thank you. I hope this was helpful and interesting, and glad to have shared what I know and what I've observed with you guys. And yeah, so that wraps it up for me for today. Joyce, I think, unless you had any questions, I think I'm happy to, please, if you've seen anybody, and if anybody who's watching this has seen anything like that's either way, like either is awful and oh my gosh, I wish they didn't do that, or positive, like here's a great example of somebody getting it right, like feel free to send it to me. I would love to just digest it and consider what else people are seeing out there.
Thank you so much. Rachel, we really appreciate you. Having a background in content, I agree. I think that, everyone wants to do the right thing and wants to reach their customers and show that they're supportive, but, content is supposed to be reinforced by action. And so, how you sort of balance intention with delivery is a lesson for all of us to kind of take to heart. This was incredibly informative and very engaging. I love all of the memes. Thank you. We didn't have any questions come in through on Facebook. I'm not sure on the YouTube channels, but I think this was a really great foundational place to get started. If you guys do have any comments as you watch, because some people watch, at later time, please go ahead and drop those things into the comments section. So that way, when Rachel comes back to us in a couple of weeks, we'll be able to formalize a better presentation that'll speak directly to, what those questions are about. I don't have too much more for today, but I did want to just make a quick announcement about what's coming up next week. This week we wrapped up our week 1 for the 2020 pre-accelerator cohort. You may have seen our first startup spotlight featuring one of our founders, which was Joel Guerra with Buzu Trading Cards. On Tuesday at 12:15, we're going to be meeting with Daisy Egaloo. She's going to be talking about her Closet Melody application, and we're very excited to continue to support her in the program. With that, I don't have anything else to say. Rachel, do you have any last minute remarks?
No, just thank you. And apologies to those who probably tried to get in through Zoom and couldn't. I hope you found us another way. The technology is always a surprising thing. So, but thank you for your patience with that, everybody, if for some reason you got stuck. So thank you.
Yeah, no, Rachel, thank you again for saying that. We apologize for the technical issues. We are not sure if it's on our end or on Zoom's end or whatever, but we really appreciate you, those who were able to get. I think I saw someone left a comment earlier. Jeremy Landon, thank you so much for being able to find us on Facebook. We're really glad that you were able to make it. Rachel, I'll go ahead and send you the links directly too. So if any of your personal contacts reached out to you, you can refer them back to the video. Okay. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. Be safe. Don't get too wet out there if it rains, and have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.